right, we are back as the clock ticks down on these negotiations over the debt crisis. Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul is criticizing both sides, really, for rushing into any deal. He is launching a new campaign ad in New Hampshire and Iowa to point out the failure he believes of past debt deals. Take a look and then we'll talk to him.
This August, the next chapter will be written, a defining moment. 14 trillion in debt, millions unemployed, the dollar in decline. We know where they stand. But will our party's leaders repeat the mistakes of the past? Will they choose compromise or conviction? One candidate has always been true. Ron Paul. Cut spending, balance the budget, no deals.
Looks like a summer blockbuster you got there. Joined now by Congressman Ron Paul. He's a presidential candidate as well. Good to see you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So talk to me a little bit about, another part of this ad goes on to really draw a lot of parallels between the last time this happened under Ronald Reagan and promises that were made in terms of by Democrats in terms of the spending cuts that would happen if indeed the debt ceiling were raised. And boy, we're hearing a lot of that same language today, aren't we?
Same thing, and that's why I'm a real skeptic. I've been around in Washington for a while, and too often there are promises, if you just do this, if you just, raise the debt limit, we're going to behave ourselves. So it continues, but I don't think it can be solved that way because they don't talk about why we spend the money. And the decisions we have to make are a lot more than budgetary. We have to decide whether we are going to be the policemen of the world, whether we can sustain the entitlement system, whether we can prop up the government by always printing the money when we need it through the Federal Reserve. They don't address any of that. And therefore, I'm going to remain skeptical, and I think we should stay true to our principles. And the best principles to stay true to, and we wouldn't have been in this trouble, is follow the limitations placed in the Constitution.
All right, I want to play a piece of sound from the news conference today from President Obama, and he's basically saying that Republican members of the House and the Senate are not listening to their constituents out there. Let's play this, and we'll get your thoughts on it.
The proposal that I was discussing with Speaker Boehner fell squarely in line with what most Republican voters think we should do. So the question is, at what point do folks over there start listening to the people who put them in office? Now's a good time.
What do you think about that, Congressman Paul?
Well, I'd wonder how he can be the ultimate expert on exactly what Republican voters are thinking. But, that is very, very important. But the people I talk to and who encourage me are the ones who want us to stick to the principles of our promises and our oath of office with the Constitution. So that's our first obligation. But if the president would come up and say, well, 53% of the Republicans want no cuts in entitlements and they don't want to back off on any military spending, that doesn't convince me that that's the right thing to do. So we have to balance all that. We have to believe in something. We have to get the endorsement from the people. Then you don't have to always work on this compromising all the time. I believe much more in bringing people together and working with different groups of people who agree for different reasons on these same issues. And I think there's too little of that.
Talk to me a little bit about this cut, cap, and balance plan that is going to be put forth next week in Congress. And the president said a couple of times, if they would just come to me with a serious plan. He says it's a serious moment in history. He says it's a huge opportunity. And if folks in Congress would just present a serious plan to him, he'd be on board with that, according to what he said today.
Well, yes, and I think this is meant to be a serious plan, but I doubt if the president will go along with it. But I even have problems with it because if it were serious, the cuts would not be so meager and we would address the structural problems. So therefore, I don't see the two sides coming together on that. because both sides are still working for political power, and one gamesmanship, get one up on the other person. So it may come about, and I had predicted they would raise the debt limit, but how that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, I'm not exactly sure.
Would you be in favor of, you talk about the structural underpinnings of our financial system, and one of the things that perhaps needs to be addressed there is real tax reform. And as a result of real tax reform, some would say that if you level the playing field and lower the overall corporate tax rate, you're going to get new revenues that are brought into the government because you'll be eliminating these loopholes. Are you in favor of that?
Absolutely, and that is a structural change that we should deal with, and a lot of Republicans would, be in agreement with that. But it's tough because the opposition paints this as, the Republicans only just want to pander to the rich. But if you don't have capital, you can't have new jobs and you can't have investments. This idea that you get capital from the Federal Reserve is a ridiculous idea. You need savings. That's why we need to bring home all those savings that the corporations have made overseas so that we have the capital to start our economy growing again.
That's an idea that needs to be discussed. Congressman Paul, thank you so much. Always good to see you.
Thank you very much.